Well, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tank Talk Podcast, your favorite podcast in the entire universe. So happy you're here with us today because we've got a good one for you. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about plants versus no plants. We're going to talk about why you would want to have a planted aquarium, why you would not want to have one, and everything in between. And let me just say, this is not an advertisement for my website.
But it is an advertisement
we do.
for one of,
We do sell plants, but
for one of our favorite channel sponsors, and that is Fritz Aquatics. Fritz is awesome. They have been partnered with us at the Tank Talk Podcast, KG Tropicals, Primetime Aquatics, and the reason why they are is because they've got awesome stuff. They've got the Fritzzyme 7, which is their live nitrifying bacteria. They've got the fishless fuel. I like these. These are the 5-in-1 test strips, super easy to use, very reliable. I've tested these up against their Fritz liquid test kit. For the most part, you get pretty much the same exact results. These are super easy to use. And trust me, it's something you should always have in your fish room, just kind of there in case you have a problem. You can test the water, figure out what's going on. But yeah, Fritz Aquatics, and you can find those Fritz Aquatics things at keepfishkeeping.com. So check it out. Thanks for being here. All right. Today, planted versus unplanted. This is going to be weird because, like you said, you sell plants. However, I look at a lot of your tanks in the background there. I don't see a single plant.
it's true.
So I don't know if we're going to just take sides here or what we're going to do as we march through this. I don't even know if we're going to be talking about this for an hour, but we are going to exhaustively explore why you may or may not want to have plants. Want to hear from you guys in the comments section. Plants, yes or no? What are your favorites? Love to hear from you. Okay. I want you to give me an argument for not keeping plants. I want you to do the opposite of what you're probably naturally inclined to want to do, given the fact that you are a plant man.
Yes. No one has ever accused me of being a good salesman. I sell a lot of product for people that are not named John Hudson, trust me. And I'm okay with that because it helps keeps this industry going and everything else. So I am totally fine making an argument against the way I pay my bills, but it's totally fine. Because listen, plants are an important part of this hobby now. We're going to sell plants whether you and I talk about them in a bad way or not. So I have no problem talking about the other side of this argument. The reason to not have plants, in my opinion, is actually pretty cut and dry. It's pretty simple. The aquariums that I have that do not have plants in them, I can't have plants in them because the fish that I keep in those tanks would annihilate those. Now, this isn't the case with everything that everybody thinks. We've got plants in aquariums right now, in one aquarium that a lot of people would tell you is impossible to do, but that's not my tank. That's my wife's tank. But my 3 main tanks that I have that I enjoy the most, that have my favorite fish in them, all 3 of those would completely annihilate. I would basically be feeding the plants to those fish. So it's not even an option for my situation. That's not necessarily an argument against plants. It's just one of those situations where I couldn't have them even if I wanted to. And I'm battling a cat here. I'm sorry, but I'm battling a cat.
And there you have, that's where the thumbnail came from. Cat
I love cats.
In John's face. That is very cool. Wait, hold on. Everybody, last time when we were recording, we had a picture of your cat staring at you while you were talking. Did you get a screenshot of that? Because you need to.
I don't think I did, but I do remember while I was editing it, seeing it and remembering that you had brought that up, how funny it was.
Man, I'm gonna have to take a picture of that somehow. But anyway, so yeah, one of my pet peeves right now, nothing gets under my skin more than this type of comment. Are you ready? Here's the comment.
Give it to me.
If your tank is not dirted and fully planted and filterless and water changeless and you're not keeping fish correctly. Every tank should be dirted and with plants and no filters and fully sustainable. And if you don't do that, well, you don't know what you're doing. I am telling you, I get it. Look behind me. You sell plants. I love plants. Every tank back here is planted except for that one over there for reasons that will be explained in a few minutes. However, we need to get out of this very narrow view because certain YouTubers have made it super popular to have these unfiltered, planted, low or no maintenance aquariums. That is a very limited way to keep fish. There are a million other ways to keep fish that are every bit as viable, and by the way, have been the main way that people have kept fish throughout most of eternity, besides these dirted, filterless planted tanks. So, like you said, that tank back there would never work as
Mm-mm.
a dirted, filterless planted aquarium. You've got two massive, I don't think people fully understand how big those fish are and how big that aquarium is. That's an 8 foot tank
Mm-hmm.
that you said is
Yes.
3 feet wide
3 feet
and
deep.
how
Yeah.
tall? About 30 inches,
It's 24.
24 inches tall, and it's a 360.
Yes.
And you've got two massive Oscars in there, a Beischer that has got to be it's got to be at least 24 inches long, I
Oh
would think,
yeah. He's every bit of that. There's
and as
three
round
Bikers
as
in there.
our arm,
Yeah.
right? So a massive pleco. You had a Severum in there at one point. Now I want you to stop and think, okay, just in that example alone, what are the fish going to do to plants in that aquarium? Well, Oscars love to just chew on everything. They'll chew on
Yep.
fake plants. So
Yep.
real plants, goodbye. Fish love to dig, especially large South and Central American cichlids. And that large pleco will absolutely destroy anything, fake or real, that you try to attach to that substrate.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it, right? You cannot do a tank in that way. I'm not saying that filterless, planted, low to no tech, no water change tanks don't work. We have 5 of them in our home right now, and I'm sure you've got a few too. But
We do.
just from the start, I don't want to hear in the comments, it's the only way to keep fish. No, it's a way to keep fish, but it is certainly not the only. And in many cases, it cannot be done. So, with that being said, I need to get that. I can breathe. I
I
love
just
you.
like to add, I second everything you just said. I
Yeah.
completely agree. And you know what? The YouTubers I know personally, and so do you, that put those videos out would tell you the exact same thing we're telling you.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing.
So,
It's just, I think a lot of people, they see a certain people keeping fish a certain way and think that's the only way to keep them. I actually think these must be maybe some people who are newer to fish keeping, and they just kind of get initiated into this idea, and then they don't even know that there's a billion different fish out there, many of which cannot be kept the way that they are trying to keep fish, and maybe successfully, but there's lots of fish you can't do that with. So, okay, unplanted tanks. We talked about these fish back here that are just going to dig them up. They're maybe they don't even eat them, but they're absolutely not going to leave them alone in the substrate. What's another reason why you might want to consider not planting an aquarium?
well, there's again, this is contrary to the way I make my living, but it does add another maintenance level to your aquarium. Regardless, I mean, okay, it may be a little bit less if you're keeping strictly anubias and really slow growers, but if you're keeping stem plants, if you're keeping crypts, you are going to be trimming those plants down. Is it like digging a ditch? No. Is it back-breaking work? Absolutely not. But it is another layer. One, to expand on what you were talking about earlier, one of the big selling points, and I think it's a valid selling point, is plants will improve water quality. It's one of the arguments that you're going to make. But and that's definitely true, and that's a huge benefit. But that comes along with having to do that extra maintenance. It's like the price you pay for that. And so having a planted tank with the concept that you're going to have less maintenance is kind of true, but also not. It's true if you want to just let your aquariums grow wild. We've got some of those, and it's pretty cool. You just let them go, and the plants fill in everywhere, and it's cool. But if you want to keep it looking really nice and manageable and like that art piece that you created, it's adding another level of maintenance to it. And I'm just going to say it. I am included in this group. I'm not making fun of anybody because I am one of these people. We're lazy people and we want to do as little maintenance as possible. You're not, Jason, but I am
Mhm.
a member of that card carrying group that is, I want to do as little work possible. Planted tanks are going to add another layer to it. So you have to know that going in.
Yeah. And I would say the other thing too is consider where you're at in the hobby. And I make this argument sometimes, at least for the unplanted tanks. People who are, we forget. I mean, if you're watching this podcast, chances are you're not a beginner. Chances are you've been at this at least a little while. You've probably got more than one aquarium and you've learned a lot, even if it's been a short period of time, 6 months, a year. And most likely you're a grown up who's got critical thinking skills and analytical skills and problem solving skills. But now I want you to take a step back. And I want you to imagine that a parent has bought a child. A child could be anywhere from single digits up to a young teenager, but they bought this kid an aquarium, and they're just trying to figure out how to keep the fish alive. They might not know about cycling an aquarium and ammonia spikes and nitrite spikes and the issues that come with that and ick and bacterial infections. And so they're just trying to keep the fish alive, and that's a win for them. They don't necessarily need that added complication of like, I've got the fish and now I've got to think about what these plants are doing and if they're starting to fade. And as you know, sometimes you get perfectly healthy plants, you put them in a new aquarium and they start to melt back. Totally normal.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they regrow. But for that new fish keeper, it's like, I just bought these fish and I bought these plants. Plants are dying, fish aren't looking good, and dying plants actually create bad water conditions. So you've got that issue, and that was all supposed to help. And then you've got new fish keepers who are, oh, I've got a case of ick, and now I'm dumping copper safe or ick X or something in there, or something that is ick X is plant safe, but copper safe is not. Or you've got antibiotics you're dumping in there, and that's all wreaking havoc on your ecosystem. You could be damaging the plants even more. So there are times when I would recommend to people, let's get your fish keeping skills first, right? Let's be able to keep the fish alive, learn about the nitrogen cycle, and then we can add the plants as you start to get more experience.
It's a good point, and and I should have clarified myself a little bit better. I should have said it more like you did, where it's another level of care. I used the word maintenance, but it's something. It's not a set it and forget it thing. Plants require care, and it would have been. I would have probably made a lot more sense when I said what I said if I had said it adds another level of care rather than a level of maintenance. Yes, there is more maintenance when you have plants, but yeah, I completely agree. You're adding another level of care, and it's not as simple as keeping fish. So you're going to start to incorporate probably things like root tabs and things like fertilizers. You don't absolutely have to do that. I believe fish are the best plant fertilizer out there, but you might want to start doing those things, and all of that promotes more growth and promotes another thing that I would use as an argument against my best interest, which I won't get into yet. I'll wait until you ask me to give my a next argument.
Yeah, sure. And again, that goes along with what we were saying about plant care. When you're talking about adding root tabs, and especially liquid fertilizers, you also have to consider your lights. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to have the best lights, like you've got those new Fluval Plant Pros or the 4.0s, or I've got these AI Primes. You don't necessarily need to go that crazy, but you are at least beginning to think about how much light do my plants require in relation to the amount of nutrients I'm adding to the water. And the reason why that can add some complication is at first, if you don't have that dialed in, you're going to wind up with this stuff called algae. And we all love
That was
algae.
it.
Yeah, the green hair algae, the green slime algae, the dreaded blackbeard algae. So you start introducing those risks. Whereas if you're a new fish keeper and you're just worried about the fish, you start getting algae, like, I'll just turn the lights off. I'll just keep the
Right.
lights on for less time. It'll be okay. And chances are it will be okay if you control your feeding. But with plants, you can't just turn the lights off
Right.
because now your plants are definitely going to go bye-bye. So there is that added complication. The one thing I think we kind of skated over, you mentioned it briefly, because of the types of fish you keep, you can't necessarily have plants. And we talked about the bruisers that dig them up, but then just off screen, You've got other aquariums where it's not so much, yeah, they would dig them up, but even if they didn't dig them up, they would consume them. So what are some of the fish that you keep where they just absolutely eat the plants? It doesn't matter what green stuff you throw in there, they're gone.
If you're watching this on video and you see me doing this, I'm not giving sign language to Jason. I'm battling a gnat that's flying around my face here. But imbunas, that's the number one answer, and goldfish. When I alluded earlier to a tank that we have that you're not supposed to be able to have plants in, we break rules all the time here in the KG Tropicals Fish House. We have plants in with our goldfish, and a couple of them have ended up floating, not eaten, but damaged. And Lisa had to re-stuff them down there into the rocks, mostly Anubias, all Anubias that we keep with the goldfish. I wouldn't necessarily recommend people keep plants with goldfish because of exactly what you just said. They will eat them. Imbunas are herbivores. If I put plants into my yellow lab tank, it's a 240. It has probably 70 yellow labs in there. I would be giving my imbunas a nice treat. So as far as the fish that I keep personally, it's imbunas, it's goldfish. They eat them up all the time. The Oscars would not eat it. They would just rip them up. And in fact, I'll tell you a funny story. I've always gotten a kick out of this about a dumb thing that I did way back in the early 90s. There was no such thing as keeping a planted aquarium to me back then because I started out with Oscars, arowanas, all not plant safe fish. But I wanted plants in there, so I put plastic plants in there because I wanted the tank to look good. And it was the kind, they all are this way. It had the little, I don't even know what you call it. The plant attaches to a little base that's like a V. And then you put that down in there and you fill it with gravel. Well, I would come into my house every day and I would look in my tank and those plants would be floating. I was so dumb. I would be like, daggone it. Why won't they stay down? Well, I keep putting the gravel in there. Let me put a rock on top of the base to keep that down. Come in the next day and they're floating at the top. It didn't even occur to me that my Oscar was considering it to be a play toy, and he would tug on them until it would get freed up and end up floating, and then he would lose interest in it. But that would happen all the time, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out what in the world was making this not stay down like that. It drove me absolutely crazy. But that's an example of not a fish that will eat plants, but just play with them like it's a toy.
Yeah, and we've got the same thing. So the Mbuna tank that is right over here, no plants, live plants in there because, like you said, I've got yellow labs in there, Pseudotrophia slow-side. They eat the heck out of those things. Severums. I have never, ever been able to keep a single green thing in a severum tank. They absolutely destroy it. Peacock cichlids will eat a lot of plants as well. The tinfoil barbs I had would eat plants. Silver dollars love plants. They will absolutely appreciate just about anything. And when I mean plants, I mean everything. Guppy grass, hornwort, Java fern. For the most part, they just destroy moss. I don't know if they're necessarily eating it, but it winds up just all over the place. So you're like, this is pointless. But there's so many fish out there. Buenos Aires tetras, right? Even ones that you don't always expect. You're like, wow, what the heck is going on here? These fish are just destroying my plants. Here's a great story. I had a 20-gallon one time. It was lightly planted, and I got, what did I put in there? I think it was the rainbow cichlid. It's relatively small, New World cichlid. I put these fish in there. Within 2 days, all I had were these little tiny green nubs all over the aquarium. They ate everything. They ate every green thing in there. And I'm like, man, this is unreal. So again, the point is, when it comes to unplanted aquariums, it might just be you can't. You can't because the fish are either going to dig them up, damage them, or just straight up consume any green thing that you put in the tank. You've also got to consider the maintenance. Are you going to fertilize it? Are you going to trim any plants where you've got excessive growth or growth that is coming too close to the front of the glass? How are you dealing with your light requirements, algae that could potentially arise as a result? And so you have all those reasons why unplanted tanks may, and just being a beginner, right? Just trying to figure things out. But now we switch gears because, again, obviously I know all these things, but you look in the background of my little fish gallery here, and lots and lots of plants. And I know you've got plenty of tanks that have plants in them that are display tanks. If you were to say the number one reason, the most important, you have one selling point, you have to sell people on plants, you get 1 point to make. What's the most important one for you?
Well, I'm not going to steal it from you because I
No,
know
no,
what
no.
you're going to
You
say. No, no, because I have a better reason. I
okay?
have what I think is the best reason. But I want to add real quick before I get into that. I did say I have another negative that I'm going to use against
Well,
plants, but you already did it. It was the algae. And
okay.
I knew that was coming. The fact that your tank is going to need to balance out, there's going to be competition for nutrients, and the algae is going to win in the beginning. And your tank is going to completely fill with algae until you get things balanced out. You get the light to not light, the food, all of this, the fertilization, until you get that figured out. Algae is probably the number one thing other than plant death that gets people out of the planted tank hobby. But it was already addressed, so I don't have any more arguments against plants. But as far as pro plants, my number one thing is nature. It is, look behind Jason's big, beautiful bald head. I didn't mean to call you a big head, but it's, and then look at mine. Now, they both are appealing in their own ways, but I believe the majority of fish keepers, people that keep aquariums, would look at yours as being more visually appealing than mine. Mine's beautiful. I love it. The aqua decor background in there is great. But mine just looks like a fish tank, where yours looks like a finely manicured, beautifully aquascaped little system in there. And it looks more natural, which is why I said nature. Yours looks like something that you would find in nature. And I suppose, you could find that in there too. But I think it is a more of a connection to nature. You've got another living thing in the tank to go along with your fish. And it just adds that natural element to it. That is because I know what you're going to say, and you're right, because it is the number one thing for keeping a planted aquarium. But mine, since I don't want to steal yours, is going to be the nature element to it.
Well, you could have taken the other one, because I 100% agree with you. That is the number one reason why I plant the tanks that I plant. It's the number one reason why, when I'm setting up an aquarium, my thought process is what plants, what fish, what hardscape. It's not fish and hardscape. It's always those three, unless it's like the rare occasion where I've got this tank over here. Well, I can't do the plants. So, okay, what fish and what hardscape? Oop, bump the mic, sorry. But it's always those things. It's always those three things, because I love the natural look. I love watching the plants grow in. I would say that is another reason why people will keep planted aquariums. You don't realize, it's not like you're just watching the plants grow like you're watching your fish swim around, but you look at a tank, you take a picture of a tank you just set up that's got some plants in there, and it might look a little sparsely planted. And then all of a sudden you look at your aquarium a month or 2 months later, like I've done with these tanks in the gallery here. It's like, holy cow, there has been a lot of growth. Mm-hmm. And that can be exciting too. When you're getting it right and you're dialing it in, just like there's a sense of accomplishment when the fish are doing well. Trust me when I tell you, you will have a sense of accomplishment when your plants are growing and they're thriving as well.
Could not agree more. I mean, and that's, I think it is so much more prevalent in our hobby now than it was when you and I started. You started a little bit before me. I'm not making an old man joke, but you got started keeping glass boxes full of water before I did. And to me, planted tanks were never a thing back then. And that's probably because the fish I started out with, I couldn't have done it anyway. But over the last 10 years, probably due to advancement of lighting and nurseries, expanding and doing all of that, and social media, like you mentioned in the past episode, all of those things have contributed to planted aquariums just absolutely exploding, and it almost becoming a staple thing, like it's a standard thing now, unless You're a weirdo like me that likes to the most of the fish that you like to keep just won't have it. So
Yeah.
completely agree. But what is the number one other than that one? We'll say 1A, 1B. How about that?
Sure, sure, sure.
What is the 1B reason for keeping? Since you're on the pro plant argument, what is that one?
Well, I would say the 1B, at least in my opinion, would be water quality and having a balanced ecosystem, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your plants are going to provide all kinds of benefits that an unplanted tank or fake plants just simply cannot provide. And that is one, we mentioned this is catch 22. So, and I know some of you are probably just finished typing out this comment and hitting send. Be like, yeah, I told them. Hold on a second there, Sporty Spice, with your comment keyboard warrior thing you're about to do. What if that new fish keeper we just talked about, who might have an ammonia or a nitrite spike, could actually mitigate that by adding some plants so that the plants will take in the ammonia or later on take in the nitrate. And so we don't have that problem from the beginning. I get that argument. So plants, they are going to help optimize water quality. They're going to consume nitrogen based compounds. And so even if you've got the beneficial bacteria in there, you've got, there's no ammonia, no nitrite, eventually you are going to have nitrate. And that stuff usually needs to be taken out via water changes, but you can do a lot fewer water changes and a lot less tank maintenance on that side of things when you have live plants because they're sucking in all those nitrates, using those as a growth medium.
And a tank full of healthy plants, contrary to what I said earlier, will keep algae at bay. It might be something that you struggle with in the beginning when they're battling it out. Algae and plants are fighting for all of those nutrients. The plants will eventually win. Algae is one of the most frustrating things, whether it's a tank like this that has no plants in it. Algae and aquariums don't mix. We don't like it. It doesn't hurt us, but we don't like it. And plants are a great way of winning that battle. It takes a bit, but they'll win that battle and they will outcompete that algae. Maybe if your tank's sitting in front of a window, they're not going to win that fight. But keeping the water quality, I don't have to agree. It's just factual that it's going to help to keep the water quality, but also help it to keep it algae free once everything's balanced out. So it's a win-win-win-win-win all the way across the board.
So now we come full circle, and I was talking about how not fun it was to field all those comments about the only way to keep a tank is filterless, planted, low tech, no maintenance. It's not the only way, but it is a great way. It's a great way to keep an aquarium when you get that dialed in and you have a planted aquarium that is usually lightly stocked and the plants are taking in all of that nitrate, and the water changes for the most part are only water changes that you're doing to replenish some of the minerals and possibly to get fish to spawn inside of those aquariums if that's a goal that you have. But the plants are doing the rest and your maintenance is next to nothing, to the point where, yeah, depending on the fish that you have, you may not even need a filter. Like I said, we've got 5 aquariums right now. They're not large. They're relatively on the smaller side that are lightly stocked, heavily planted, no filters, pretty much no water changes, just top offs. And those top offs are providing the minerals that the plants need. Water hardness is staying relatively constant. And I like that because we have an ecosystem that is balanced and there's a ton of reward that comes with that.
And again, when those plants completely fill in and for lack of a better word, take over the tank and just everything, everywhere you look, there's plants and the fish are swimming in and out of it. It looks very natural. It is very natural. And that is super appealing to so many people, not just the water quality and the increase or the decrease in maintenance, except for the fact that you have to maintain the plants, but just the fact that it looks like a natural little thing, and it is a natural little thing. That's a fun science experiment for a lot of people. I talk about this all the time. We were fortunate enough to have Diana Wallstead hang out here with us for a day. She is basically the person who came up with this whole concept of no filter, you know, potting soil substrate with a sand cap on it. I don't care what anybody on social media says. Deep down, they know that that's a Diana Wallstead thing, the Wallstead method. She wrote a book about it in the early 90s. And I remember distinctly sitting right here in this exact spot, looking across the table at Diana and saying, at what point do you consider fish? Like, when do fish come into the equation here? And she was like, that, I really, my thing is the plants. And, you know, I might add some little tiny, maybe rice fish or, you know, little nano fish. But if it's not shrimp, snails and stuff like that, I'm not really concerned about fish. It's not that she doesn't care about them, but it's like, I'm setting this up to be a little plant system, not necessarily a fish system. So if there is a lot of nitrates in there, there's no fish in there for it to hurt. So, but anyway, she does usually put shrimp and stuff like that in her bowls and her non-maintenance tanks. But even then, like you said, you do still have to top them off. And that's the ones that we have. That's all Lisa does too. I don't have any tanks that are that way, but Lisa does. And all she does is top them off, tap water, good to go. And hardly ever even has to touch them because she kind of likes them to grow in and not trim them back to look fancy. Just let them do their thing.
Yeah.
It's fun.
And I don't want to understate what you've already said a couple times, and that is fish behave differently in a planted tank. They just do. They seem to interact with their environment in a very different way. Even when you compare real plants to plastic plants, it's like they know, okay, this belongs here. This is providing a benefit to the ecosystem. And the way that they will swim through plants, around plants, the way that they act in their ecosystem, it does change the way, in my opinion, the way fish behave. They just seem more at ease in their ecosystem. They've got structure now. You've got different size plants, different leaf structures, leaf thickness, the way they flow, all really cool.
It is fun. Lisa has a 125-gallon planted tank. I probably should have made that my background for this. It is overwhelmed with Vallisneria, which is just so cool. There's other plants in there too. There's some crypts, some hygrophila, there's some pennywort. She's got all kinds of stuff in there. I don't want to call it overgrown, but it's very, very full of plants. And she's got full-grown adult angels in there. And it's so much fun. As I look over here, I'm watching them do it while we're talking, watching them swim through the plants. It's just really cool looking. It's fun. There's other fish in there too, but it's so neat to just watch these tall, thin fish swim through all that val. It's really cool. It's fun to watch. So definitely another layer to the natural look, but also just being able to watch your fish behave differently with them in there. Yeah. And that's definitely true for a fish that don't like plants too. Like watching Mbuna swim through rocks is fun. I mean, there's other sides to it too for non-planted people, but there's something about watching angels swim through plants. It's just the coolest thing. And betas, angels and betas, I love watching swim through plants.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, it is really cool. The other thing that sometimes gets overlooked when it comes to planted tanks is, and you kind of alluded to it with the 125 with all the jungle val, you've got plants that are basically self-propagating. So you can get more plants for other tanks. And so once they really get going, I don't care if it's Anubias, val, swords, crypts, you name it. Once they really start getting going, it's like, hey, I can take some of these plants out of here, put them in another setup. I got free plants.
Yep. Or just let them completely duplicate and take over the tank and not pull them out, which is what she does. Vallisneria sends out little shoots, and before you know it, new Vallisneria pops up a few inches away. Swords are notorious for that too, and it's really cool. You can take them out and supply the rest of your fish room with all of those free plants, or you can just let them go. And some people, and this is maybe an argument against plants, but some people might look at her tank and be like, well, that's just a mess. Like, why would you do that? Trim them back, make it look better. We love it. I mean, we love that kind of just let it do its thing, which is kind of the argument for the the no filter planted tanks, no maintenance. It's kind of the same thing, but believe me, she has plenty of filtration on that tank. But um, I don't know, there's something exhilarating about just letting it go too,
Yeah.
and letting it fill in. And I love that part of it.
Yeah, and some of these plants you can have for many, many years. I was just thinking, I actually was doing a prime timers video for my channel members, and we were looking at my shrimp breeding tank. It's a 40-gallon breeder, and for a number of years, that's what it's been. And there are some Anubias and some jungle. There's jungle valley that's years, I mean, years old, older than the shrimp themselves. And so you almost get these connections to the plants that you're not fully expecting. But once you get a plant, like, you won't be able to see it on the podcast, but the 125 behind my head here, the Geophagus tank, there's a sword plant in there that I got. And it was a little tiny guy. It was just a few inches tall. I put that in there, and now it's taking up like 25% of that 125. It's grown all the way to the top, and it's just this gigantic plant. But what's cool is what's happened is all my snakeskin barbs, all of my glass cats, now they're in that plant. So that's kind of like where they call home. You'll see them kind of coming out. It's almost like, you have the Finding Nemo fish, right? The clownfish with the sea anemone. That's how they're acting around that plant, and it's really cool.
That's awesome. I love that. Crypts are another one that maybe not some of them like crypt parva and lucens and stuff like that, but a lot of your crypts will get a lot bigger than you're expecting. And the funny thing is that your plants are almost like your kids, or if you, I shouldn't have said it that way, because I mean, most people aren't going to treat plants like their kids. But what I mean by that is, if you come across somebody that hasn't seen you in 2 years and you've lost 30 pounds or gained 30 pounds, you look like a completely different person. They haven't seen you. And so you show up, you look completely different. Whereas if they saw you every day, they probably wouldn't notice that. That happens with plants too. You're looking at your tank every day, and it doesn't seem like a whole lot's happening, but you and I have a unique situation where everything we do is on video, and you watch a video from 6 months ago and you're like, whoa, look at that planted tank. The plants were all so little, and now they're all the way up to the top and they're all full. It's really cool to watch. I don't know why I used the kid analogy, but I hope you know what I meant when I said that. It's neat to look in there and then realize, oh my, like they really have taken off. That's really cool.
And it is something we've talked about this before, when you lose interest in the hobby and that kind of thing, when things are getting a little bit dull, plants open up a whole new realm when it comes to fish keeping. Because you might be someone who's like, man, I think I've kept everything, at least everything that the fish stores have around me, and I don't know what else to do. It's like, well, have you tried planted tanks? And even if you have, just like with fish, there seems to be a lot of different variety. Well, the same thing with plants, John. You've mentioned Anubias and crypts, and I mentioned sword plants. There's jungle val, and there's all your, your bacopa and your buse. I don't know how many different types of plants you have on your website, but there's a bunch. And it's one of those things where you can mix and match them, see how they do in different size aquariums. That can reinvigorate the hobby.
They can. I would put it at the same level, because I've done both, as exploring the saltwater side of the hobby. You don't realize it until you set up a saltwater aquarium that it is a completely different hobby than the freshwater aquarium. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it's just a whole new world opens up to you. Plants are the exact same way. All of a sudden, you start to see, everybody knows sword plants. I mean, Amazon sword, the most popular aquarium plant. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, it's the biggest staple. Everybody knows those. But when you start exploring all of the other ones, and the flamingo crypt, for example, it requires a little bit more attention and a little bit more care. And you really got to be, I don't want to say advanced, but you got to know how to take care of a planted aquarium. That challenge can be a lot of fun, to explore new things and watch that wall of rotala grow in the back of your tank. I mean, that's neat. I completely agree. It is such a new world, and it's a new thing to learn. And I think learning is the number one appeal to aquariums. Learning how to keep that new fish, learning, you got to do this as opposed to that because this fish requires it. Well, now you have that with plants, and it's amazing. It's a whole new level. It adds a set of challenges, but I completely agree. It's It's like a whole hobby to itself, exploring plants.
And
I'm
you
supposed
can
to be
make
the
it
one arguing against plants here, and I'm like,
well, and you can make an argument that there is room for growth in planted aquariums every bit as much as there is room for growth in keeping fish, because you can start adding in equipment like CO2, really high end lights, and really get an aquascape that is out of this world. And so there's almost this, you can grow to a point where it could take you years, if not decades, to learn how to properly aquascape a tank, to learn how to properly care for these plants if you're up for the challenge. And if you're not, the best part about it is, yeah, you've still got the Anubias, the Crypts, the Val, and the Wisteria, and the Water Sprite, and the stuff that's just sword plants are just going to grow, and you're not going to do
explode.
anything about it. So you can go all the way from easy, I really don't want to have to worry about it, to I am somebody who gets bored with things that are too easy, and I want to keep challenging myself more and more. Well, there's plants for you too.
It's definitely true. I got a curveball to throw to you. It's it's child's play for you. I'm sure you'll know the answer to this question right away. What if you have that person that has not kept plants and they're listening to this and they're like, you know what, the pros far outweigh the cons, but I am an African cichlid keeper. I have a 125 gallon peacock and hap tank. I want the benefits of plants. I don't necessarily care about the nature side of it. I want the benefits. How can somebody experience those benefits of live plants in a tank like that that's full of fish that would eat the plants or destroy them?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is the pothos, which is actually not an aquarium plant. It's a plant that grows in dirt. What people do is they cut the stems and they put the stems. Now, again, with your African cichlids, you might have to put the stems in a hang-on back filter. If you've got a sump, you put a light down there. You can put the stems down there in a sump. Sometimes they'll leave the stems alone, especially as they start to grow roots, because it's really cool. I've had tanks where pothos grows everywhere, and it's the roots that grow all the way down from the top, and they actually root into the substrate.
Yep.
And they do this like all around the perimeter. So they're really kind about that, the way they grow their roots. And it looks like the most amazing underwater ecosystem. And it's just, if you think aquatic plants suck nitrates out of an aquarium quickly, trust me, the land plants, because the leaves are exposed to the air, well, they can take in the CO2 much easier and release oxygen a lot more efficiently. So that means their metabolism can really speed up, which means they need more nitrates and suck all that stuff out. And you will get the advantages of live plants and not necessarily have to worry about them getting eaten. And pothos is cheap, and you can just, that's one where you can just keep taking it from tank to tank and cutting off stems and putting them in all your aquariums.
We were at, I shouldn't say this because it involves my wife breaking the law, but we were at the aquatic experience, and I think it was my wife did this, or maybe one of our friends, I don't know, somebody did this. We were at the aquatic experience in New Jersey. This would have been 2019, staying at the Embassy Suites, which was really nice. And they had pothos plants everywhere. One of those women, I'm not sure if it was Lisa or the other one, took one of those pothos plants, a little piece.
Oh, yeah, just a stem.
Yeah, just a little bit, a little tiny piece. Nobody knew it was gone. And that plant might still be in my house to this day. I don't know. But there's another thing, too. Now that I stopped talking about my wife breaking the law, there's another way you can incorporate live plants into those. It's extreme, but it can be done. And that would be a refugium.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something I would do? No, of course I wouldn't, because I mean, that's just set up a planted aquarium. But if you wanted those benefits, you could set up a sump system onto that tank, and put all of your live plants down in there, get all the benefits. Maybe not as much as a full planted aquarium, but you can have all of those benefits from the live plants in your system, out of reach of those. I don't even know of anybody that's doing refugiums anymore. I have a spot in my sump that's actually right there, this cube right here in my sump, that if I wanted to put some pumps in there, I could make a refugium out of that, put a light on it. But I just don't know how much of an impact it would have on 360 gallons. But it used to be a big thing back in the day. You route your water down out of the tank into a sump, and the sump is just all there full of plants. It's a pretty cool thing to do. I don't know how many people are doing it anymore, but it is another way. If you want the benefits without having the plants get eaten up, you can try that. It's extreme, but it works.
I did a fish room tour. It was called, I think it was called like Garage Fish Room. It was when I was in Florida, and it was crazy. This dude had a garage fish room, and he had pothos growing out of almost every single tank. Now, he was a cichlid breeder, like an African cichlid and Buna peacock breeder. So he was growing pothos out of these tanks, but it was growing so well that he had it growing all up his walls. It was hanging from the ceilings. It was all between the tanks. And it literally looked like when you walked in there, it almost felt like you were walking into a jungle that just had window panes of fish tanks just kind of sticking out. It was really cool. So if you ever want to see an extreme example of using pothos, just type in Primetime Aquatics Garage Fish Room, and I'm pretty sure that was the one. It's crazy. It was really awesome.
We have something like that right there. You just can't see it because it's off camera. But Lisa did the same thing behind her goldfish tank. She does have, and I touched on this briefly before, but she has Anubias nancon in the goldfish tank, and they have been leaving it alone. A couple of times they've uprooted them, which you don't really uproot Anubias because they're not rooted in the substrate, but taking them out of the rocks basically, and she just had to stuff them back down in there. But she has the same thing where she has a Monstera plant that's not put into the water, but she also has pothos in there. And we actually hung a piece of lattice, which we painted black. We hung that on the wall, and she's weaved the pothos into that. And so it looks like it's just completely covered in this pothos. Really, really cool. And like you said, the roots are going down into that water, sucking up those nitrates, keeps the plants nice and healthy, and helps with keeping the water quality good for the goldfish too. So it's absolutely a win-win. And I just got to say, it looks amazing. But
Yeah, that's
it's
very
not for
cool.
everybody, but it's cool.
You know, we didn't even touch on, I would say, one of the last advantages I have in my brain of a planted aquarium, and that's things like Java moss, subwassertane, and this is basically a big wad of plant that's interwoven, and it is outstanding if you are trying to protect fish fry, if you want to breed shrimp, small fish, because the eggs kind of fall in there, and then the fry have a place to just hang out. But if you are ever interested in breeding really tiny fish or shrimp, Java moss and subwassertane. Subwassertane is got the same properties as a moss. It kind of just grows on stuff, but it almost looks like an underwater seaweed, freshwater seaweed, and it is so cool. So that's a huge advantage of having these live plants, is being able to protect fry, being able to protect shrimplets until they get to a size where they're not going to be eaten by other fish, because they will gravitate towards that stuff.
Completely agree. And I've seen the other side of that. I have lost control of moss before. And it's so frustrating because it will grow fast, it will spread, Java moss in particular. And, you just have to not be lazy like me and keep it trimmed, and it won't be a problem. But yeah, that's a fast grower that doesn't give you a carpeting effect, but it will coat things like rocks and driftwood and stuff like that, adding to that natural layer. Very, very cool. And like you said, giving somewhere for those fry to go and get yourself some fry instead of them getting eaten by fish. I have another downside. I have another. It's another argument against plants.
Okay.
And this is something that if we didn't bring this up, people would rebel. Because it would just happen. And that is potential. This doesn't happen every time, but potential critters. These plants they're grown in outdoor nurseries in Florida, almost all of them that you get in the hobby in our industry here in the United States. And you cannot avoid snails, bladders, pond snails, ram's horn snails, things like that, things like scuds. It's not impossible to avoid, but it's one of those things. If you are a planted tank keeper, I don't care who you're buying your plants from. They all come from the same nurseries. So, it's not like somebody's selling better plants than somebody else. They're all from the same place. You do run that risk at some point of having a little snail egg that you didn't see, and it ends up hatching into a little ram's horn snail. Personally, I love it. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, it doesn't bother me at all. And if it's things like scuds and leeches and things like that, most of the time your fish will eat those up and you won't even know that they were there. But snails can become a problem for some people, and they all have a big problem with that. Welcome to planted aquariums. That it's one of those things like aggression with African cichlids. It's just part of the deal. You can go through every possible scenario to try to prevent that from happening, and one can still slip by. And a lot of these snails can reproduce on their own, so there you go. But my wife and I are snail people, so that doesn't really bother us at all. But we go to great lengths to not send snails to our customers that didn't ask for them. But I'd be lying to you if I told you that sometimes something doesn't slip through the cracks. It's just, there's no way to prevent it completely.
That's a great point. And I've talked about snails a million times. If you don't want your pest snails, control your feeding. A little harder to do when if it's a shrimp only tank or something like that. But for the most part, yeah, you're going to want to control your feeding. I did think of another potential upside though, to balance
Good.
your inning downside.
Good.
We didn't really talk about the fact that plants produce oxygen. And so one of the reasons why these filterless, basically maintenance-free tanks work is when you're lightly stocked and you've got these plants there, they're taking in the CO2 and they're building all their sugars and stuff, but they are producing oxygen as a byproduct of that. And so you will get at least that benefit. I'm not saying necessarily, oh, you've got a big tank that has a wave maker. Well, if you just put plants in, you can take the wave maker out. I'm not saying it's going to be that extreme, but it is a benefit, to be sure.
Certainly. Absolutely. Yeah. Just adding to that total enclosed ecosystem that you have going on in there. And that is, dare I say, the only reason why you're able to get away with those properly stocked, small fish, heavily planted tanks that don't have any filtration and stuff like that. That's one of the main reasons why you're able to get away with that, because the plants do provide some of that oxygen. So yeah, good point. That's another one. I'm glad you brought it up, because somebody else would have if you hadn't.
Sure. Well, I'm out of advantages, disadvantages. I don't know if you've got any more that are rolling around in your brain, but
I don't have any advantages, but I do have a very small tidbit of advice for people, because being a plant retailer, I get all the emails, and there are very common ones that come through. This doesn't happen with all of them. You alluded to it in the very beginning of this, is plants melting back when you first get them. And that frustrating a lot of people, which I completely understand. Everybody in this industry, every nursery that's producing plants, produces them immersed. They do it for what you were talking about earlier, the access to unlimited CO2. That's why they do that. The body of the plant itself, or the stems, is out of the water. The roots are down in the water. They all do it this way. It's kind of SOP when it comes to growing plants. And the retailer is going to do one of two things. Keep them immersed like I do, because I believe that provides the customer with the best end product, or they're going to submerge them. But here's one of the pieces of advice that I would give. When somebody is a retailer that advertises their plants as fully submerged, they've only been submerged for probably a week. There's a difference between submerged and converted. And what I mean by converted is plants that are grown immersed, when they are submerged, they're going to take a different form. A lot of them. Some of them will completely transform their appearance, like Rotala, Wisteria. These plants are going to look completely different when they're submerged than immersed. When we send people Wisteria, sometimes I'll get emails like, hey, this isn't the plant I ordered. And I'm like, it will be. That's in its immersed form. Trust me, it's going to look different when it does its thing, which Wisteria almost always does. It's a hard plant to kill. But one of the downsides, it doesn't happen with all of them. When you do submerge that fully into the water, some of them take a little while to adjust and convert over to submerged. They'll melt back a little bit. The worst thing you can do is rip that bad boy out of there and throw it away, thinking that it's a dead plant. Clip off the dead parts, let it do its thing. Just leave it alone. It will pop back up again. Particularly, everybody talks about crypt melt. It is a pretty common thing. Again, it's not 100% of plants or crypts that do this. In my experience, more of them don't melt back than do, but that's the salesman in me telling you that, but I'm telling you the honest truth. They don't all do it, but when they do, just don't panic. Don't throw them away. You didn't waste your money. That's the plant converting. This is a process that can take several weeks to do, which is why I say if people are advertising fully converted plants, you might really want to look into that, because most retailers are not going to keep plants for 2 months to let them fully convert to submerged. They want to get the plants in, get them sold to you, and get them out as fast as possible, because that's how you stay in business. So just be aware of that. Be aware that almost everybody's selling the same plants. They're all from the same places. They're all grown immersed. They all have to convert. And even I'm in North Carolina, you're in Chicago, Jason, our water is very different. Even if I did send you a fully submerged plant, it still has to convert to your water. So there is, the plants have to figure things out. They have to settle in. Don't throw them away during that process. Don't panic. Let them do their thing. You'll be fine. Sorry, just had to get that rant out of there.
Great advice, and I'm glad you offered that. So so here you have it. Advantages, disadvantages of a planted tank. Don't throw them away if they start to look a little gnarly. As always, thank you so much for being here. We will be back same time, same place next week. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye. I'm going to stop saying bye. I'm just going to go back to the wave.
Yeah.